G'day and welcome to another Fixit Fingers quick fix. In the tradition, this is more of a handyman rather than a woodwork video. There will be a little bit of woodwork involved. What I have in mind today is something the wife has been after me to do for longer than I care to admit. Here is where we dry our clothes. We live in a small unit. We do have a big clothesline downstairs for sheets and towels and things, but most of the clothes are done in here on an airer. I only have limited space, so what the request is, up high, to put in a clothesline so that we have a bit more capacity for drying those clothes. Not terribly exciting, but hopefully pretty functional and rather quick and inexpensive, as we are going to DIY this rather than going for a store-bought solution. Follow along. The only real restriction I had from the wifey was that she wanted it to blend in. This is a functional thing, not a fine piece of art, so we're going to try to be very minimalistic with it. All right, let's get to it.
And what better way to kick it off than with an error? I should have been measuring up the top where I wanted the pole to go. There was a slight difference between the floor height and the ceiling height. So here's what you're going to need. I've got myself a 3 metre long curtain rail from Bunnings, 16mm, a scrap piece of MDF, 2 white tap flanges, some white wire, wall plugs, 1 support hook, some white paint and some silicone. I've taken my measurement, which was about 2.8 metres in my case, and transferred it to the pole. Then I knocked half a centimetre off to give me a little bit of play to fit it in easier. This is where the problem was. Up top, it was actually a tiny bit wider than it was down the bottom, but luckily for me, everything still ended up fitting in well. Using my 12mm MDF, I need to make myself some circles. These are going to be the flanges, which will hold the pipe to the wall, and a 15mm Forstner bit in the middle will help me mark the center. This doesn't have to be exact. Very roughly cutting them out with the jigsaw. And drilling out the centers for an incredibly crude circle shaping jig. So I'm using my disc sander. There are lots of ways that you can create a perfect circle. This was the easiest one that came to mind. Clamping down the MDF board, nail through the middle of the circle, and slowly inching it forwards. Having just done 2 projects based around dust, I gave myself a quick uppercut and installed the vacuum, which made a big difference at sucking away that nasty MDF coming off the sander. Took them down gentle until we got the perfect fit around each of those flanges. Now it's 16mm curtain rod and I only had a 15mm Forstner bit, so I had to pull out the Dremel and do something that looks a little bit rude in order to get the pipe to fit in nicely. They need to be able to run relatively freely to aid in the installation. So a tight fit's good, but a slightly loose fit even better. There's nothing sus going on here at all. Still nothing sus. Just sanding my MDF and fitting my pole in there, that's all. Some clearance holes for the mounting. And a bit of white paint to blend it all in. Only needs to go around the edges. As usual, I'm forever dealing with brick. The good news is I can position it pretty much wherever I want. I've gone for about 45 centimeters from the wall and the same height from the ceiling as the curtain rod nearby. Breaking out the hammer drill. Get my quick plugs in. Not going to take a lot of weight this. Curtain rod's not super strong. So here's the only trick on the installation. You have to thread through both sets of flanges before you start to install it. Now I'm lucky enough to have those little shelves behind me. I could just lean the other end on to balance it, but a friend would be useful here. So with the flanges pre-threaded onto the curtain rod, I can then just drill those into the wall, and you can see that I had enough space in order to easily get the second one into position. It was almost too much space, but luckily it worked out all right in the end. So do measure up top. If it's too short, it's going to fall out. And here's the nice little finishing bit. A bit of silicone in around the gap there. Terps on a rag to clean it all up, and it looks beautiful. I drilled one last hole into the ceiling and had a bit of a boo-boo here because some of the plaster came away and I had to come back later and skim coat and repaint. That wasn't part of the plan, but some of these things just happen. A bit of white wire was the original intention. However, I found it looked a bit tacky, so I found some electrical tape in white, wrapped that around, and that looked a lot neater. Blends in lovely. Now I've got no problem reaching this, but I think I'm going to have to make a bit of a stick with a hook on it so the wifey can get the clothes up, or I'm going to be stuck doing the laundry every week.
And there you have it, all done. As you noticed in that last little shot, it is basically invisible to anyone who doesn't know it's there. If you found this useful, please do like and consider subscribing to the channel. Obviously it's usually more woodworky related, but I throw in a few handyman projects like this every now and then. Should help you out a little bit to get some more action out of your spare room in terms of the very exciting task of laundry. Back to some more exciting woodwork next week. I'll catch you then.